Sure.
Okay.
You share the link?
Yeah, live. Yeah, I shared on chat. Yeah, live.
All right.
Hmm.
So, hello all. Welcome. So let's see. The
Hmm.
So this has been the long day for all of you. If you're still awake, it'll be wonderful. uh, so you had your and first of all, thank you, Inside IIM, to hosting us. This is me, Gejo. I've got GP with me, and we took the CAT today. So I had taken the test in slot 2, and GP took the test in slot 3. We had to travel, I think, 1 hour, 2 hours to go to the venue and take the test. Uh, so what we kind of thought was to, given the fact that you've got the 3 slots, and we also had a lot of internal discussion in terms of what the paper was. So we can share with you our idea in terms of what this CAT was, what we believe is a kind of score which will be a good score. And we also believe that there are GP. I think that across the board there is this. Everywhere people are saying that DLR is so tough. Life has become very difficult. CAT is screwed up, I think.
Yeah, Jijo, that's something I've been hearing since 2015. So frankly, I've got used to it. And 9 out of 10 times I don't agree with this analysis. Because what we are doing in such a scenario is projecting our, let's say, failures onto the paper. Today's paper, and I'll stick my neck out again and say, today's paper was not tough as far as DILR is concerned. It is people who made it tough by not following a process. And I'm a strong believer, if you follow the process, the outcome will be good. If you don't follow the process, you have a poor outcome. And that's possibly what has happened in DILR. Okay.
True. So Adesh and Shivam, hi, hello. If you guys have any questions, I'm following your chat as well. So I'll pick up those questions. Let me actually share my screen and give you sort of a snapshot in terms of what we understand as far as the test is concerned. The number one thing, GP, is that I have a small crib.
Yeah.
Is they come out with a sample paper, right? and sample paper purpose would be, I don't know what is the purpose of the sample paper is. And this slot there are 3 different slots. Right. There are some people who take the test in the morning, then the afternoon, then the evening. And you obviously can only surprise the slot number 1 for people. And slot number 3, at least we'll get to know what has happened. So it was not much of a surprise, but there were the 2 the important changes that they made. One is they scrapped one set of question completely, which is odd sentence, and added paragraph completion. And DLR, the 4466 got changed to 5555. It was not a major change, but nevertheless, I felt that the like, for example, GMAT or GRE or LSAT or any of these tests, at some level, Indian test needs to get more standardized, and they have to upfront. I don't know what it's your college. I'm Bangalore. I know. But my college also done the same thing. So,
Jijo, I don't have a problem if it's a one-shot paper and there's no standardization.
correct.
Right. So if all 2 lakh odd students were taking the paper together, it need not be standardized. But when you have multiple slots, you have to standardize it. Otherwise, you are being unfair. You are being unfair to someone or the other. I would say in this case, the first slot would always suffer because they were the ones who are dealing with uncertainty. The second and third slot will be that much more prepared because they will know what to expect in the paper. Okay? So will it make a significant impact on the scores? Maybe not. But end of the day, just to be fair, slot 1 should not be getting into the exam not knowing what they are going to what question types they will be seeing, or what is the paper structure going to be, and slot 2, slot 3 know exactly what to expect. That I think is being unfair.
Right. So therefore, while we are making this statement that it's a paper is sort of easy to moderate, or let's say difficult, whatever, is saying that we are looking at from the perspective of our understanding of what the questions are and looking at as objectively as possible. So obviously we have not taken into consideration these issues that could have happened for the slot one people who've taken the test, suddenly seeing that the new kind of question, what impact would they have? And when they move to DLR and they see 5555, what impact would they have? So that is not taken into consideration. But overall, if I look at GP, what was your take in terms of at least overall in terms of the paper and what you have seen over the
overall, if I look at vis-a-vis last year's paper, I would say it was almost the same, maybe one question lower than last year. In terms of degree of difficulty would mean that overall your attempt or could be one or two questions lesser than last year, but that's essentially it. So while there's a variation across the three sections, but overall, if you look at last year also, if I remember correctly, 99 percentile was somewhere in this score only, around 98, 99 marks only. So on that count, there's not much of a difference between last year's paper and this year's paper. But as we always say, the devil is in the detail. And out here, what we need to look at each slot, which section went up, which section went down. And then that is where I think things are going to change for students.
Correct. So one thing at this point in time is that when we are looking across the slots, so from career launcher, we've got the different set of people who have taken on multiple slot. So technically speaking, I'm not seeing slot number 3 English to compare with slot number 2 or slot number 1. So by and large, I think when I start with verbal ability and reading comprehension, across the board, the paper seems to be more or less on the same level of difficulty. Yes. Having the same kind of challenges when we are discussing. I think the passages, maybe I think that barring one passage, which was I think slot number 1 and slot number 3, that is a feedback that I was getting. But that one passage was slightly painful to read. But slot number 2 also, one could say that one passage was slightly more painful than the other passage. I've not seen the slot number 1 and 3 passages, so I can't compare across. But overall, I felt that whatever pain was there, it was not a huge one. Not like the British colonialism or those kind of passages. It was still very, very manageable passage. Right. One thing what I found with respect to question is a lot of double negatives, right?
There are lots of them. Though I would say I have a feeling that slot 3 had slightly a fewer number of double negative questions as compared to the other two slots. But okay. I'll be able to confirm it only once we get the question papers. Based on what I've heard you and others who took slot 1 and 2 say, I felt that slot 3 had maybe a couple of questions lesser double negatives in the paper.
So typically what happens when you're double negative, you cut the two things and move forward. Yeah. So that's something that people have used to this. All of the following is true except. So then none of the following is true except. So you know that none except chodke, whatever is remains, that is sort of the thing. So another thing that I also found with respect to the VRC across the board is every question had questions which were or options such that people could get 2 or 3 questions out from each of the slots. So when it comes to reading comprehension, so that's why we kept about easy to moderate, because they were easy questions. So eventually it came to easy to moderate. I think verbal ability out of the 8 questions, even though the new type of question that sort of the, I don't know, paragraph, sentence insertion question, I don't know what to call it. Sentence insertion question. It turned out to be actually, it was a new one, but it turned out to be very manageable than the odd sentence one.
Yeah, no, it was not difficult. So I think most students would have been able to pick it up well. So I don't think it should be an issue as such. Rest of in fact, I was pleasantly surprised that parajumbles in my slot were definitely not very difficult. 2 out of 3 were definitely doable. And para-assembly, again, if not 3 out of 3, at least 2 out of 3 were doable. So in this out in the verbal section, I would say 5 to 6 correct answers was definitely on as far as slot 3 was concerned, and I think it is the same in other 2 slots.
Correct. So again, about 12 to 15 marks around from the VA itself, and the RC. Some people look at 3 passages, some people look at 4 passages, and if you look at about 3 passages, it's about 6 net 18. If you're looking at 3 passages, net 18. 6 3s are 18. Look at 4 passengers, it could even be about 24. So 24 plus 12 roughly is about 36. That typically I think would be the 97th percentile. So we are estimating that it'll be somewhere in this range, 30 to 14 question net correct. If you've got across the board, then you've done really well. We still don't know in terms at this point in time. It seems to be that there is not too much of variation across the VRC section. That's
no, across the 3 slots, it seemed to be the most stable section.
So next come DLR. So just put difficult. At what level of difficult?
Yeah. So DILR, I think it suffers more than the other sections for the simple reason. While students have studied in English for all their life, they have studied the language, they have done maths. DILR is a new area for most of them, and they tend to either push it for later or tend to ignore it, and hence they don't get to master it. Otherwise, otherwise it is just basic graphs, charts, and puzzles. Okay, and when we say difficult, there are a couple of things that we need to be clear about. The 40 minutes which are typically given are not sufficient to do all the 4 sets. Okay, you will do at best 3 sets, which means you have to choose at least 1 set not to attempt. Now, which one not to attempt, you can't do it, you can't decide which one not to attempt without going through all the 4 sets. So to me, the basic process, and which is what I meant by saying that students don't follow the process. The basic process for DILR meant go through all 4 sets. For example, in my slot, in slot 3, in my paper, the easiest set was the 4th set. Had I started doing set number 1 or 2 and not seen the 4th one, I would have missed out the easiest set. And that set would be solved in 5 to 7 minutes comfortably. Okay, so that is one part. Secondly, when we are looking at how to go through the 4 slot, go through the paper, you have to use the question paper button, which is what is strongly recommended by all of us all the time. That use the question paper button to read the passages, to do the RC sets, passages, and to do DI sets. Yet it is ignored by most of the students, and hence they find it difficult to even comprehend the data, because the advantage of opening the question paper button is that you get the entire data together. If you are looking at on the platform, looking at the data in the platform, you will have to scroll left, right, up, down to be able to get the hang of the data, and then it starts looking very difficult. Okay, so that is the part of the process I think that most students missed out. Thirdly, which most students don't do or are not able to do or don't have the expertise to do it, is using choices or using data from the question to do the table. For example, the second set which I did in my paper, the first one was one of the easiest set, the other one, 2 questions, the choices were such you could easily say what the answers are going to be. And that helped me complete the table in another 7-8 minutes. So what happened in my paper, I took about 6, 7, maybe 8 minutes to go through all the 4 sets to decide which ones to do. The next set I did in another 7-8 minutes, and next set I did it in about 10 minutes because I used the choices. So in 25 minutes roughly, I had done 3 sets, 2 sets completely. I still had 15 minutes, and in those 15 minutes, if I want to do only 1 set of data, it is not difficult. I pick up 1 set of data, do the complete process, you will solve it. Okay, but since I wanted to go through all the sets, I gave 1 set 7-8 minutes, understood what is the requirement, doable, not doable, took it to a level where I knew it is solvable. I left it and went to the 4th set because I wanted to have a look at all the 4 sets. Okay, but my point is, at least in slot 3, and I understand I was discussing with Ravi Teja, he also said the same thing for slot 1. 2 sets were definitely on, 3rd set was doable. So 2 to 3 set is what people should have done. And 2 to 3 sets means you are talking about 50 to 70% of the paper, and which is what quant is, which is what you expect to do in quant also. In quant, if you have done 60% of the paper, you'll say you have done a great job of the paper. So I don't understand why 60% is not a good attempt in DILR. But as I said, DILR is something that people probably don't pay that much attention to, or have a fear, and hence struggle in this section.
Yeah. So I completely agree with that assessment, because I've always felt that the CAT DLR set is something that you can do within the time limit. It's a question of having the right approach to that question. But nevertheless, when I looked at the slot number 2, mine was slot number 2. I think this was more or less the same case with all the slot. It was not like sets were deliberately made extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So and also it was not like sets were extremely easy. There was probably one set which is about revenue and cost. There was one set in slot number 2 which was manageable. Rest everything is about putting your mind towards it, working towards it, and cracking it. So it required a little bit of what is it, interpretation and inference to be drawn, deduction to be done to be able to do it. So my therefore feeling is that across the 3 slots, our understanding was that one set which is about 4 to 5 questions is what Janta would have probably done, and then some would have gone to 2 sets, some would have gone to 3 sets. People would have crossed 3 sets. Maybe there might be some would have looked at all the sets. People who have cross 3 sets would have probably even picked up, let's say, 3 questions from here and 4 questions from there to solve. So our general estimate is that this may across between the slot there could be some up and down here, but about 9 to sort of 10 questions would if somebody would have done, should have got them the 99th sort of percentile score, and that would have been a good sort of a good place to be in. Our take on maths, I think we have mentioned easy to moderate, moderate, and moderate difficult. These are all the discussion between the person who have taken the test. I think one thing that is common, and I believe that is more or less the case, it was, I think, GP, there was this perception that the number of arithmetic questions came down. I think arithmetic did not come down. It was like the algebra was.
Yeah, I would say 9 questions of arithmetic in the paper and about 7 questions of algebra in the paper. 9 plus 7, 16. So the first thing is arithmetic plus algebra, 15 to 16 is what you would expect out of 22 questions. About 70% of the questions are typically from these 2 areas, and which is what held back. Okay. Secondly, when you look at this paper, at best, I would say maybe arithmetic was short by 1 question. Okay, that's the maths I will say. But that's always fine. 9 to 10, instead of 10, you have 9, it's not a big deal. Similarly, if you look at algebra, I would not say algebra was high. Algebra, you typically have 6 to 7 questions. So that to me is the issue out there. Secondly, when you look at those arithmetic questions, most of the arithmetic questions are doable. So while and if you do only arithmetic and nothing else but arithmetic, you would still get something like 9 3 at 27. You'd still be, if not more, at least 90-95 percentile range. So frankly, it's fine. I'm not too worried about that part. In arithmetic and also in algebra, the issue in most of the questions was they were a bit time consuming.
Correct.
So थोड़ा सा वो मेहनत कराया उन्होंने. They made you work a little harder to get the answers. That I would say is the only thing. Otherwise, nothing to be really worried about. Out of the 9 questions of arithmetic, if you do 6 to 7 questions out there, then you have algebra plus others, you do another 4-5 questions. I think you are at 99 percentile almost.
So there are, I found sort of 2 things. I don't know whether that was across the board, but I think my sense was it was across the board. Is that there was. It was not like each question was like you can do it in 20-30 seconds range. You had to look at that 2 minutes, but either you had to think a bit to get that answer. So some of these questions were looking, I don't know whether it was in a case, it was looking very ugly. For example, there was a question that was talking about 15,000 factorial is divisible by n factorial ka factorial. Okay. And what is the maximum value of n? Now it was looking ugly. So, but you know that whatever is that number must be there. So it was like 7 factorial is 5040, 8 factorial will go to 40,000. So it was that I would say that I felt that someone who has got the basic concepts in place, understand the basic concept in place, and willing to spend that 1 or 2 minutes would have probably got about 8-9 questions out of it.
That's right. I agree, Gejo. In fact, I would put it this way: at least in plot 3, there was at least 7-8 questions which were simple, straightforward, and you could have easily solved them. But going beyond 14, 15 would be a challenge.
Correct.
So to me, the range for quant was something like 7 to 14 questions. So 7, I would say most people should be doing. If you have not done even 7 question quant in slot 3, then definitely this is an issue. That means you are not well prepared, or you got overawed by the situation, or you panicked, or something happened. Okay. Otherwise, 7, 8 was definitely on. But given that each question was taking 2 to 3 minutes to solve, it essentially means that going beyond 13, 14, or maybe 15 question would be a challenge. So which is why to me the range is 7 to 14. 14 being a very, very high attempt for this paper. And it is not because of questions are difficult, because the questions are time consuming.
Now so in one sense, I think I think there were some cribs that people had in slot number 1. Slot number 1, there was no DI sort of set that for this, and probably there was no time. I think no time speed distant questions. This was something that I heard that people were saying, but people who took slot number 1 felt that it was actually easier than the sort of other 2 slot.
Yeah.
I could feel that something like a 10 to 11 ish in the slot would have been a sort of good place to be net correct. That means, and in slot number 1 seems to be 12 to 13. So there could be a bit of scaling up and down that could happen with respect to QA. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But by and large, I believe that if someone is in the is there about net about 13 questions net correct in the first one, or 9 to 10 in DLR, and you've got 10 to 11. I think you've done a sort of a good job with respect to this test.
Yeah. So if you're looking at something like 10 plus 10 plus 13, 33 correct answers, which means a score, an attempt of about 40, 42 should be great. 40, 42 attempt with about 80% accuracy will give you about 100 marks.
Yeah. So these overall still an estimate here. I think don't completely. These are still sort of estimate, not based on any quantitative data, more in terms of qualitative understanding. Just to sort of give you some sense, as I believe that most of the 80th percentile, I believe ERC about 7, DLR about 5 questions net correct, and QA about 4 to 5. So if someone were able to get there, then they should have cleared the cutoff. Now it's a sort of a question of the question of actually waiting and seeing what would happen with by 8th, I believe. The 8th is when the response sheet comes out, no GP, right?
That's right. Typically 8th is the date.
The question is, sir, 80 percentile would be around. Kunal,
see, if you look at 90 percentile last year was somewhere around 57 marks. I would believe that 90 percentile this year. Okay, so we have that number with us. Okay, so 90 percentile for me is somewhere close to 60 marks. Yeah, that's what it is. This is fine. I will agree with this part. So which means 80 percentile is likely to be about 4 to 5 questions lower. So yeah, 45, 46 is fine.
So 80 percentile in verbal should be around 7 is 8 is. This is also likely going to be very close last year, and 5 to 6 could be DL. It could be even come and 4 to 5 would be maths. This range, any of this. The only problem is the moment 4 becomes 5, the marks goes plus 3. So it seems there's a huge jump from 4 to 5 questions. So that would be the case. I'm going to pick a few questions that I can see here. Slot 2 arithmetic. Okay. Now with the slot 2 arithmetic was, I believe, about 10 questions. If somebody would have got net correct, I believe that anything about 10 would start hitting you more than 99%. Answer is 7. Yes, that's true. Sir, ab cat ho gaya, jo hona tha ho gaya. Ab results batayega. Yes.
यही अप्रोच चाहिए.
Results बताए. दूसरा भी एक चीज है. I think this is also very, very important that we should tell you guys is that there are 2 important things that is going to happen. So one is, of course, whatever happens during this period of time, I think GP, everybody feels that they are not done well. This is a sort of general feeling that they have. There are two things that happen. There are tests that is going to happen. IIFT, ZAT, these are important tests. So
Yes.
whatever happens, you'll have to fight. Second thing is that you will get some calls. There are a lot of institute. I'm sure that if you feel that you're going to get some call, you start thinking about preparing for the second stage. DLR set 1 metro questions. ये क्या आपका slot है मेरा slot है?
नहीं, हम दोनों में से किसी का नहीं है. You are slot 2, I am slot 3. This is slot 1. So heard about it, and this was a tricky data set in which and Ravi was telling me that many people missed out one line in that data set and could not solve it. Okay.
अच्छा.
Guys, don't worry about the questions. कौन सा किसका क्या answer सही है? Wait for about a week, 10 days. By 7th, 8th December, the response sheet will be out. Till then, whatever any one of us says is only memory based, and we could easily be wrong on a couple of those issues.
Correct. So I think the good news is it is done. It is over. The pain is over, and we wish that you will move forward and prepare for the next stage and next course of action, which is important.
You know, a couple of questions. Let me just pick it up from here.
Sure.
One is some students asking, what do they do for the other exams? ZAT, IFT, SNAP, etc., etc. I'll just start and maybe you could add to what I'm saying. First thing is, whether it is NMAT, SNAP or ZAT, bulk of your preparation is already done. You don't need to do anything else. Okay, except in ZAT where there's a decision making. As far as NMAT is concerned, by and large you are there. Maybe you need to do a bit more of reasoning, but nothing else is required. SNAP, nothing else required. Secondly, when you look at the QA section, ZAT, NMAT, SNAP, 100% covered with CAT. QA, nothing else should be done. You just need to look at doing a few papers or section tests of that particular exam. Okay. When it comes to the English part, both NMAT, or rather all three of them, will have some amount of grammar, vocabulary, fill in the blanks, which is not there in CAT. So to that extent, you need to prepare for that, or maybe you need to practice it a bit or revise. As far as that is concerned, the verbal part also includes reading comprehension, which you will find to be a level higher than that of CAT. So the degree of difficulty, both of the passage in terms of reading and as well as the level of question will go up significantly. While the passages of English in ZAT are shorter, maybe about 200, 220 words or so, you will find that, as I said, the level of difficulty to be higher and understanding will be the key. Okay. SNAP and NMAT, IC is going to be primarily factual, which means very little of inference, very little of, let's say, critical reasoning kind of questions. By and large, there will be factual questions. So there again, nothing much to be worried about. As far as reasoning is concerned, NMAT, that is a place where you may need to do a bit of stuff. You could look at Bank SSC kind of reasoning. You could look at Maharashtra CT kind of reasoning, and that will take care of it. SNAP, as I said, everything is covered. Then comes decision making for ZAT. This is a completely new area. If you are taking IFT, I would say you can start even now. While you have to take IFT, you could start now. Else, if you want to be very sure about it, कि हाँ IFT के बाद चालू करेंगे, even that's perfectly fine. Okay. So decision making, someone was asking when will we be launching the DM 1000 course? Gejo, when are we launching? 4th, if I remember correctly.
5th December.
5th December we'll be launching the course. You could pick it up if you want. But the critical thing to understand, and that 2 or 3 things that we always keep saying again and again, but students tend to forget that decision making is distinctly different from reading comprehension, and decision making is not common sense. Okay, decision making is decision based on objective criteria. So whenever you have to take a decision, there has to be criteria on the basis of which you are taking the decision. So when you are doing decision making, that is one skill which you need to develop for yourself, that based on the passage or the situation given, if the decision criteria is not given, you should be able to pull out that decision criteria and on that basis come out with the decision. Now, which will need some amount of practice, and the best practice material is all ZAT papers. So I would say, as far as decision making is concerned, ZAT 2008 to ZAT 2008, till last year's paper are good enough for you. They will be cumulatively maybe 250 odd questions. If you do them a couple of times, you should by and large be well prepared for it. But when you're doing a question, your job is to be able to say, okay, what are these rules to be followed? Okay, so while doing those questions, you can identify the rules to be followed and create a Dhobi list of rules. You will be much more comfortable taking care of decision making. The other thing which you need to look at as far as these exams are concerned, SNAP, NMAT, ZAT, IFT. For all of them, we have question mocks as well as old papers available. Okay, so maybe 4 to 5 old papers and 4 to 5 mocks. For SNAP and NMAT, there are no old papers. So SNAP and ZAT, SNAP and NMAT, there are only mock papers. So something like 4 to 6 mock papers should be enough, depending on the amount of time available to you. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, so the thing is that the GP absolutely right. So I think ZAT will be much more closer. Once you take a decision making, will be very closer to CAT. Even for example, the 26 verbal question that is there in SNAT, 14 will be reading comprehension. There'll be some, the 2 questions of poems. So about 16 will be comprehension. Plus from the remaining 10, there'll be that about the 6 question will be based on critical reasoning, which is again reasoning based. A couple of questions will be from this one, which is the paragraph jumble. About 6 questions will be critical reasoning and paragraph jumble with option. About 4 questions will be grammar and vocabulary. While you have got NMAT, we have got a substantial chunk of grammar vocabulary. SNAP is anyway a crazy test, so see that's. I think there was a time when there was no reading comprehension also. I think all sort of things happen in SNAP. And IFT is sort of a different examination. It has got RC 50%. I think about 14 questions from RC, about 15 questions from RC and 20 from verbal. So each of this paper, so a lot of your CAT preparation is taken care of. Like GP said, there are old paper available for IIT and ZAT. That is going to be absolutely crucial. Plus the mock test and fine tuning your strategy. The quicker you can wake up and start preparing for this test is going to be absolutely crucial. I think that whatever happened in the CAT, whatever results happen. These are also good exams, good opportunity, great schools. So please go ahead and do the prep. Yeah. Right. I think we are done. I think that all of us.
So I don't see any other questions.
So how to approach SR? So normalization of slot 3, what expected?
I think we can wait for that. That will be shooting in the dark, though normally I would say, if I look at Gejo, if you could go to the previous slide. Okay. Yeah. Now look at this. In QA, probably slot 3 will gain by 1 or 2 marks. There will be a gain of 1 or 2 marks in QA. In DILR, there may not be a significant change for anyone. And similarly in VRC, I don't see a significant change. Secondly, please remember, what we are giving you is our inputs based on what we have done and our discussion amongst ourselves and with a few students. Okay. So once the response sheet comes out, then we'll be much better placed to give you guidance onto the normalization part. And there I would also request all of you to make sure that once your response sheet comes out, you go onto the Career Launcher website and give and submit your score sheet or the response sheet. We'll be able to give you a percentile predictor, or we'll be able to estimate your percentiles much better. And usually we are very, very close to the actual numbers. But if we get a larger data, even that gap which is visible now will not be there.
Anything else? I have omits on 10 SNAP, NMAT, how to manage all the exams. I think something that we address. So 10th is SNAP, 14th is NMAT, 18th is IFT. All right, wonderful.
The first thing is that you start only after IFT.
Correct. Huh?
So you go paper by paper. Before NMAT, 5 days, 5 papers. Between NMAT and SNAP, before SNAP, 5 days, 5 papers. Then between NMAT and SNAP, take 3-4 NMAT papers. Then between IFT and NMAT, take 3-4 IFT papers. That's all you can do. The time available is not much, so you have to just make sure you keep taking papers, because from a study point of view, nothing more needs to be done by you. Significantly not required.
So one other thing that I will typically also would want to share is that people, some of you may be worried about things like grammar. Kya karo? Let me just take an example of IFT, right? IFT has got, assuming that there are 20 questions of verbal, and let's say there are 15 questions of RC, right? And this verbal, let's assume that there will be about 3 to 4 questions of paragraph jumble with options, and rest is all the crazy questions, right? So my feeling is that you may know about 8 to 10 questions today. It could be 5, it could be 6, it could be 7, you know about 8 to 10 questions. But reading comprehension is something that you've done for the CAT. It is quite possible that you can actually get about 12, 13 questions correct. Yeah. And if net you start looking at it, you get a score of 22 already, so, which is a very good score, right? So even if, let's say, I'm able to get, so the key would be that strengthen the things that you already know. I think now is not the time to start opening the word up, picking up a word list and mugging on all the things. And math is completely covered. I think nothing to worry there. I think NMAT you will have to look at reasoning of NMAT, which is actually a lot of critical reasoning. So I personally don't think that you will have any huge challenge, like how GP is telling. Take one before one test. Focus on the test. Once that test is done, next test, mocks, and once that is done, next test mocks. That's what you should do. You've got another questions. So do you think the cutoffs will fall for this year's CAT? Not much, GP. Not.
And you could just show the slide again. I think Satyam has come a little late, so he may not have seen that slide of the cutoffs. Yeah. So this is what we are looking at. Okay. The other slide also, there was the percentile scores. Yeah, this one. So you can look at from your point of view what number interests you. Okay. But please understand the gap between last year's paper and this year's paper at the aggregate level is one odd question only. It looks like 3 marks, but 3 marks, please remember, is one question.
If you actually look at CAT 2020 to 2021, the gap between BRC was just one question each. DLR was practically the same. The only difference came with QA, because QA largely had a huge fluctuation. And if you look at this year's paper, we believe that it's going to be very, very close to that. So it could be one or two questions down that will make 3 marks down. So that's it. So you've got another one. Sir, I'm already in IIM Trichy. Should I repeat for IIM ABCL FMS? Interesting.
Yeah, you can. If you get a call this year, why not?
Yeah.
But let's wait. Once you get a call, then let's talk about it. Okay.
So why decision making of that is so unpredictable? Answer key of each institute of DM is different, and the answer key of DM released by XLR is different. It is. There is an element of subjectivity, but it will not be the case where it is 100% different. But these days, in which case, XLR will release answer keys, and you, out of, for example, about 21 questions, you may have questions with respect to about 3 to 4. But otherwise, by and large, it should be the case. BRC section today in CAT indicates to me that the so-called best test series in the country for CAT definitely needs to reframe its RCs. I don't know which one you're referring to. Okay.
So I think we've covered all the questions. We could close the session then.
All right. Yep. We will close session. Thank you so much, and wish you the best for the future test. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.